Steven. Let me know when we're good. All right, it is now 6:30. I'm going to call the August 9th, 2021 meeting of the Jordan School District 717 to order. First order of business, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item number 3, roll call. Here.
Here. Here. Here.
All right, moving on to item number 4, consideration of the agenda.
Would you like a motion?
I'm looking for a motion.
I move to set the consideration of the agenda.
All right, Sandy moves. Second from Connie. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Can you turn the volume up?
How's that? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor from Sandy and a second from Connie to approve the agenda. All those in favor? signify by
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Item number 5 is the Jordan Pride Awards, and it's for the trap team. So those of you, this is Stephen. Nobody wants to go first.
Thank you, board members. I just want to introduce our trap team. They've had an outstanding program. This program would not exist without our coaches and our volunteers that come help us create this program. I think this is the largest year we've ever had with over 45 kids, I believe. So I'm going to introduce Jeff and thank Jeff, first of all. Without his support of this program and his coaching staff, this program would not be what it is today. So, Jeff?
Thank you. Good evening. It's been a while since I've been able to update you on the successes and all the hard work the kids have put in to represent all of us in Jordan. So, as Stephen said, we had 48 kids in high school trap this year. That's our largest year so far. And the league kind of went through a rebranding, and we also did, to more align with the college shooting programs. College shooting programs shoot different disciplines every year. So we added on sporting clays this year so we could be more in line with what the college programs are and what the league does. So we had also 9 kids shooting sporting clays on top of the 48 shooting trap. So we placed 5th in the conference in trap. I don't want to say that's great, but we don't try anybody out for the trap team. We don't redshirt people for the trap team, and that's probably why we're 5th in the conference for trap. So it's a very good program. Every kid shoots from 7th grader on up, shoots for a score for the team score for conference. So when we placed 2nd in conference in sporting clays, the largest tournament in sporting clays is the high school championship. We won the high school championship in sporting clays this year, the first year for that. So then on the flip side, you have a championship in trap. We placed 14th in the championship in trap. The top 40 teams from there go on to the state tournament. In the state tournament, we finished 14th in the state. And it is a pure tournament. There are no classes. So we are going against the largest schools and some of the smallest schools. So it's a really great accomplishment. I quite often get picked on by the kids that they didn't win anything. Well, we didn't, as in a trophy or in a medal or something. And you think about it, what we're putting up against the Lakeville South is and everything. It's quite amazing what we can do. So also on trap is like golf. You can also go individually to state. Jacob, you want to wave your hand? Went individually to state for. So and then trap is a little bit different. We actually have a nationals tournament. So there are 34 states in trap shooting. About 1,800 teams, somewhere along the lines of 35,000 kids. Okay, so the top 240 teams get an invite to go to the national tournament. So we went to the national tournament in July in Michigan. So, and there we placed 14th on a team. So 14th out of about 1,800 teams. So. And then also, it is like everything else, it's team and individual. We also had Caleb Schmidt, placed 15th in nationals out of 35,000 kids. Ben Swanson was in the 60s. Jacob was. And we had several kids in the hundreds that's. So that's like, it's our biggest year and our most successful year. So it was really great for us. So, thank you very much.
We have a Jordan Pride Award for each one of you. Connie, would you help me distribute these?
My grandma's trap shirts up for sale.
So first off, we have 2 Jordan Pride Awards for Caleb Schmidt for 15th place at Nationals and National Team Participant. Hunter Lensmeyer for National Team Participant. John Lensmeyer for National Team Participant. Ben Swanson, National Team Participant. Jacob Stay, National Team Participant. Jeremiah Stay, National Team Participant. Zachary Beach, National Team Participant. Nicole Ray, National Team Participant. Carly Bregman, National Team Participant. And Nicholas McConnell, National Team Participant. All right, thank you guys and congratulations for your accomplishments. All right, moving on to agenda item number 6 is public comment. We do have 6 community members who submitted a request for comment. So I'm just going to read our policy on public comment before we begin here. During the public comment part of each regular board meeting, up to 30 minutes of time will be allowed for district constituents to address the board. Each person may have up to 3 minutes of time to speak. This is a time of listening by the school board. The board is here to listen only and will not take action or discuss topics brought forward during the open forum. It may, at its discretion, ask questions for clarification of issues. The board may, if it deems appropriate, bring said issues forward at subsequent meetings. No personal attacks will be allowed. The open forum is the only opportunity for members of the audience to speak out during the meeting. And the school board policy is that a request be submitted 10 minutes before the start of the meeting. So with that, I would invite Tim Young up as our first speaker. And Tim, we're going to give you a 15-second heads up if you need it.
Yep, thanks.
I'll go like this.
Sounds good. Good evening. My name is Timothy Young, and I would like to address the subject of culturally responsive pedagogy at Jordan Public Schools. I attended the last school board meeting where I heard Dwayne Judge bring up the topic of critical race theory and the Wonder curriculum. That turned into a conversation at home with my wife Lisa, some research, and eventually a meeting with Superintendent Evenson and Dr. Yamlin to discuss the curriculum being used at Jordan schools, the equity education mission, and how our schools and teachers can help our children become critical thinkers but not tell them what to think. We had a constructive discussion and learned that we have been using the Wonder curriculum since 2013, and that recently we underwent a refresh of resources, not a change in curriculum. I've read many positive things about the curriculum, but like most things, over time, it evolves. So one has to ask, did the resource refresh come with new ideas, new workshops for teachers, or expectations for student outcomes? The hot-button topic of critical race theory has spurred many concerns amongst parents in this district. How is it impacting what is being taught? Is it a core tenet of our mission? Are students being taught to be ashamed of who they are and to see everything through the lens of color? I believe the best way for us to work through these things and dispel concerns is transparency and visibility. So I'm asking that as parents we are given visibility to the resources and curriculum, outside speakers, and any changes to the expectations of our students. Circling back to culturally responsive pedagogy, one of the topics near and dear to my wife and me is equitable outcomes. We have watched over the past 12 years as we have taken away opportunities for our gifted students and those students that would like to strive to go above and beyond, with the removal of honors programs and the STARS program. And we fear we are going to keep going in that direction as we focus on equitable outcomes. Superintendent Evenson and Dr. Yamlin assured us they were focusing on equitable opportunities, and we applaud that effort. Even our governor's roundtable in 2020 to create a roadmap for transformational change in Minnesota education reinforced that sentiment. The number one priority was, we need schools to learn to get ready for every child in order for every child to reach their highest potential. Let me say, amen. But then let me ask, how can we have this excerpt on our Jordan Equity and Outreach page? Eliminating those structural and institutional barriers to educational opportunities requires systemic change that allows for distribution of resources, information, and other support, depending on the student's situation, to ensure an equitable outcome. When no student is created the same, with different talents and aspirations, not knowing what each student will do once they are provided the opportunity, you cannot expect equitable outcomes. You can only ensure equitable opportunity. And we should be focusing on helping each student reach their highest potential. That is fair and just. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Okay, next up we have Derek Stalo.
Thank you to the school board and superintendent for allowing us time to speak tonight. My name is Derek Stalo. I'm the parent of a 5th and 1st grader here at the Jordan School, also a coach for many of the children in the district. I am speaking to be a voice for my kids, teachers afraid to speak out, and anyone who's afraid of losing their job or other backlash. I want to discuss the topic of our current masking policy, which I applaud, and our future masking policy. Hard to believe we're here in week 73 of 2 weeks to slow the spread. Dr. Makari of Johns Hopkins University is the one source I have found that has done research into the effects of COVID on our youth and adolescents. What he found is there's a 0% mortality rate in children with no pre-existing conditions like leukemia, and that masks had no correlation to the spread of the virus in the community globally. But power-hungry health officials, school administrators, and unions are back for the fall semester. Haven't they already done enough to ruin the mental and physical health of our kids? More kids drown annually than die from COVID. Have we drained all the pools? That's from the CDC. One parent, a nurse from Jordan, said in our recent parent meeting that we were running out of pediatric mental health beds in our state. Not from COVID, from the mental health crisis we're creating by masking our kids. Also, numerous studies state that 70 to 90% of communication is nonverbal. We are seriously hindering the development of kids like my kindergartner, not being able to see the smiles on their friends' faces and their teachers. If you had children that were masked in sports last year, it was heartbreaking to watch children run up and down basketball courts with masks on. I received an email my left fielder was going to stand in left field 300 feet away from other children with a mask on, playing softball last spring. That's how ridiculous these policies have gotten. They need to stop. So we've established the risk of masking and lockdowns and what they pose in comparison to COVID. Here are our asks as parents. Number one, we support the right of parents and kids to choose whether they mask, which is the current policy, and again, we applaud that. That should be our policy and our permanent policy to represent what parents in the Jordan School District believe. We also want a zero tolerance policy for bullying, so if parents do wish to send their children to school with masks on, or teachers wish to wear them, that's their right, and we respect that. We want the board and superintendent to have proactive conversations with state agencies, teachers' unions, and other applicable bodies about this position of the Jordan community. And lastly, and what I'll leave you with, is that we are watching. If things change after the school is funded, many of us will look to find alternate means of educating our children. From our meeting the other night, there were approximately 50 families in that group. The financial impact to the Jordan District would be approximately $750K to $1 million if we found alternate means of
Your time is
educating our
up.
children.
Your time is up, so.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Scott Penny.
Good evening, and thank you again for the time for us, allowing us to speak. I'm a husband and a father of 4. I have already pulled my children from the district, and I'm here because this is important. I'm a community member, I'm a business owner. My kids are not part of this district, but this is an important thing for this town. It's my home, and I've grown to love this place, okay? As a business owner, I had several people approach me, do you really want to speak today? Because of potential backlash. And a quote came to mind that said, yes, I do. And that is that the path of least resistance makes both rivers and men crooked. Okay? This is not the path of least resistance for me to speak in front of you and the repercussions that may be brought to me just because of my opinion on my business. But I'm here because this is important. Okay? I grew up in a town about half the size of Jordan, and I think the most important thing for me is my kids' experience in school. Okay? What did I go through that helped me become the successful person that I think I am, the good friend and father that I believe that I am? And that was the small town values that we had. It was also the friendships I made from a young age. I have friends that I still talk to this day. I've known since I was 5 years old. My oldest daughter is now 5 years old. I want everyone in this room to think back to when they were in kindergarten, and if you had to miss that day you met your best friend because he was sick, he was quarantined. You never got to meet him. You didn't get to have a group project, or you didn't get to go to recess and play with him or her and make that connection because you couldn't tell if he thought your jokes were funny. You couldn't tell if the teacher was upset with you or if the teacher was happy with what you did because you couldn't see the expressions on her face. We live in a small community. You see that teacher out at a ball game, outside, outdoors, and no mask on, and she says hello to you, and you walk right by because you have no idea who this lady is, or she doesn't recognize you either. That does not represent the small community that I want to live in and that these people want to live in. We want our children to have the opportunity to experience the same things we all did when we were kids, okay? So, that being said, the challenge is not just on the kids themselves. It's the administration, the teachers, the extra burden that places upon them to, okay, I just sent 8 kids home, I did my regular classwork, and now I got to do extra classwork, make sure I got the emails sent home, everything to keep those kids from falling behind. What about the kids who fall behind because of unnecessary quarantines and extended periods of time where they are sent home for absolutely no reason other than they shook the hand or high-fived someone who had a sniffle the following day? In fact, there was a study published in 2020 that had 445 asymptomatic people in one room with one asymptomatic positive COVID person. Not a single one of the other 445 people contracted COVID from an asymptomatic person.
I'm sorry, your
Masks
time is
do
up.
not help, and neither do quarantines. We will not comply. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Dwayne Judge. Next speaker is Dwayne Judge.
Thank you, board members, once again for letting me address you, and Superintendent. I feel like we might be seeing a lot more of each other in the coming months. So since my speech last month, I've had a lot of conversations with other parents, and a lot's come to my attention. One of those things is it's come to my understanding that we have some female students using boys' restrooms and some students identifying as cats. I knew that there were students that identified as something else in the district. I didn't know that the school district was catering to this behavior. So what happens when it's male students demanding to use the females' restrooms? What if I were to follow any woman on this board into the restroom after this meeting? You'd feel uncomfortable, and rightfully you should. Why on God's green earth would we subject our students to this? What happens when it's male students wanting to participate in female sports when they have a clear and unfair advantage? This is madness. Where do we draw the line? At a minimum, catering to this behavior is a distraction from teaching students math, reading, and science. Even further, it's dishonest to teach kids one thing in the classroom while advocating and supporting something contrary once they get in the hallways. It's not the role of the school to keep, is it not the role of the school to keep distractions at a minimum, especially distractions which inhibit teaching, instruction, and learning? Let's be blatantly honest here. Children acting like cats is a distraction. Kids hissing, meowing, and purring at one another is foolishness. Children do a lot of foolish things. I know I did foolish things when I was a kid. But it's our job to guide them to maturity. Within the walls of the school, catering to this behavior serves no purpose but when it comes to furthering the intellect of students or to enable them to learn the lessons and skills that will prepare them for the real world. In biology class, students are taught about chromosomes, DNA, and how genetic code determines our species, sex, physical characteristics, and much more. One cannot change their genetic code just by wishing it to be untrue. I'm in the automotive business, so I'm going to use an analogy here. I could wish all day that my Chevy was a Ford, but simply fantasizing about it doesn't make it true. Every vehicle has a vehicle identification number, or a VIN, that tells you what year, make, and model of the vehicle that you're dealing with. It specifies what kind of engine it has and perhaps what kind of transmission is installed in the vehicle. I can make as many modifications to my Chevy as I'd like, but it will never make it a Ford. I could swap out body panels, but it still won't make it a Ford. I could even take off the Chevy bow tie and install a blue oval in its place. Still not a Ford. If I went to a parts store and provided my VIN to order parts, they'd give me parts for a Chevy, even if I insisted that it was a Ford. Imagine if I showed up to a car show telling everyone that I had a Ford when in reality it was a Chevy. What kind of response do you think I'd get? Are these people bigots for pointing out the obvious, for telling me that I don't have a Ford? Are they insensitive or cruel for me understanding or pointing out the facts to me? So our asks of the school board are this. I'm going to cut that part short.
Your time is up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Bill Hennon.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Bill Hennon. I'm a Jordan alum and also father of 3 children in the district, 2 of which are school age and hopefully will be in school this year. I would like to discuss or address the uncomfortable CSE, Comprehensive Sex Education Bill, HF 358. If this passes legislation this year, this bill would take effect in our classrooms in 2023. Please do not take anything I'm saying as an attack on you because it's still a hypothetical. So whatever I'm saying to you is just more getting information out to you guys. So again, it might be a moot point. But if this doesn't pass, I'm willing to bet they will rename this bill, repackage it to sound like something that it isn't, and reintroduce the legislation, and we will be back in the same scenario in a couple of years. It's mainly, again, just to get this out in front of you. I have a question for the board. If this passes, how can we as a district opt out of this curriculum? Are you prepared to keep this out of our children's hands? The reason being, as far as I've seen, the bill would force school districts to reestablish their teachings on sex education, sex as a biological and purposeful act, and turn it into a recreational activity. Sure, they will of course teach the primary function, but also inject ideologies that myself and most people here do not support. And to be honest, we do not think the school has any right to bring these activities to our children's attention. Some examples include LGBT sex acts. Sorry. How to pleasure yourself. Again, sorry. Different methods of sex, which I don't even want to say in front of the board. And try everything once is their stance. How and where to get an abortion. The list goes on. This whole agenda starts at the age of 10. No, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old needs to hear this. And you can imagine as a parent, your child coming home with this knowledge. This creates a whole new spectrum of confusion in an already confusing world. Think back to when you were that age. Could you have handled and processed this information in a mature and understanding manner? I know I couldn't have at that age. These kids are already dealing with so much, and to throw CSE in their face would add to the piling on to their already delicate psyche. This to me is a common sense objection to this curriculum and needs to be opposed by all of us, or when presented with the chance to do so. Subjecting our children to this perverse approach to sex education will only have one outcome: the desensitizing to sex, and what once was a sacred act for a man and a woman will now subject our children into making light of it once again, turning it into a recreational activity. Thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate it.
Okay, our final speaker under public comment is Corinne Hennon.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. My name is Corinne Hennon. My husband is Bill, so you know about my family. I want to address something tonight that I feel as if it has got swept under the rug during this pandemic, and that is mental health. According to the Minnesota Department of Health, the preliminary numbers reveal that there were 723 suicides, 1,008 drug overdoses, and 992 alcoholic attributed deaths in the state of Minnesota in 2020. Unfortunately, the age breakout for this data is not readily available for deaths yet, but we saw 98 youth suicides in Minnesota in 2020. Please note that this number does not include attempted suicides. According to Minnesota Compass, there's approximately 1.3 million people aged 0 to 17 in Minnesota. In the age range of 0 to 19, Minnesota had 115,714 COVID cases and 3 deaths in that age group surrounding COVID. We are not clear yet if these 3 deaths were from COVID or died with COVID. I realize these numbers aren't quite apples to apples because the 18 to 19-year-olds are not included in the population numbers, so my stat is actually higher than the true number. But using that data available, the death rate for school-age children in Minnesota for COVID is 0.0026. Please don't misconstrue my statement that those 3 deaths are insignificant, because they are not insignificant. Any life loss is a tragedy, but if we are looking at probabilities and possibilities, the chances for a virus to be fatal to school-age children is more than extremely rare. This situation has impacted us all in many ways, but the truth is the mental destruction that has happened is severe. The loneliness and isolation will eventually impact anyone. My own best friend decided last year it was all too much and jumped off a bridge in Minneapolis. I've talked to nurses in Jordan who have seen kids as young as 8 in the ER with suicide attempts last year and this year. 8 years old. And sometimes these kids have to wait up a week to get a bed in a mental health facility because they're overrun. This is a crisis. Can you imagine if you have an 8-year-old not just having suicidal thoughts, but acting on those? My daughter is 8, and I can't. My ask of you is this, because I'm not just speaking up here as a mom, but as a human being. I'm asking you to remember what we've done to our children the last 18 months. In the beginning, we didn't know as much, but we know so much more now, and those that want to be vaccinated can be. So next time the powers that be start pushing for quarantines, for masks that cover their smiles in the classrooms, at recess, FIAD, in sports, making our kids eat alone at their desks for lunch and stand 6 feet apart, only letting them go to the bathroom when it was their group's time to go to the bathroom, and for pushing for no human contact or close interaction with others, I'm asking you to please remember these numbers and the damage we'll continue to do implementing these prison-like policies again. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank those who came up and spoke. I know that that can be a difficult thing to do. Moving on to the consent agenda, and hopefully I do this right. Do I read it before? Okay. Okay, so the consent agenda 7.1 is the minutes from the previous meeting. 7.2, monthly finance reports. 7.3 is donations, which I realize I don't have. You're gonna okay. 7.3 is donations. We received a donation from AIS for staff t-shirts in the amount of $2,050 and an anonymous donation for water bottles in the amount of $2,370. Thank you, Sandy. Item 7.4, resignation of high school paraprofessional Danny McDonald, resignation of nutritional services director Andrea Shack, resignation middle school teacher Kaylee Doherty, resignation high school building nurse administrative assistant Glenda Grant, resignation volleyball coach Jennifer Kuski, resignation tennis coach Rachel Bolbrick, resignation football coach Sean O'Brien, resignation ELS paraprofessional Jerry Ann Sulich, and new hires technology summer intern Nathaniel Rosario, and new hire middle school cooks helper Ann Shelton. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Lauren moves.
I second. Oh, go ahead.
Second
I'll
from
second.
Molly. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Action items 8.1, the 2021-2022 back to school update. Turn that over to Superintendent Casey Evenson.
Good evening, Vice Chair Daner and members of the board and all of our members of the public that have joined us this evening. Tonight I will be reviewing the communication that we have shared out with our families for our back to school planning. And the first thing I want to note is as we're informing our planning, we interact with a lot of individuals. One thing that was really important to us this summer was to get information from our public through that linked public comment form. We had pretty good results. We had probably 280 plus communications back to us, and a couple of things really stood out to us. One, they really wanted us to focus on our enhanced cleaning practices, making sure we have the hand sanitizing stations available, making sure we're disinfecting and cleaning our buildings, two different things. And then also we heard very strongly considerations for masking and having the family choice on that piece. You'll note tonight that our practices and procedures that we've outlined really are representative of all the feedback that we've had, in addition to health and safety team. Our health and safety team weighs in on those items as well, with certain conversations. Do we add backwater fountain, components? Do we keep the plexiglass? All of those things. So we really interact with our stakeholders on those pieces to inform that planning, as well as our district and site teams. Our faculty also received that same survey, and of course we receive guidance from the Department of Education, Health. We look at the CDC components. Scott County very frequently holds a meeting every week that we communicate with, as well as our nurses. And then of course the U.S. Department of Transportation governs some of the actions that we have moving forward. So again, I mentioned this already. It is a continued priority for us to make sure that we are taking care of the health and safety practices just for our staff and our students and our community members that join us here at Jordan Public Schools with our operations. Again, this information is subject to change as there are requirements that may come down. The communication I have heard and received is that we won't be receiving requirements in the future, but again, we just never know. And I want to talk about requirements versus recommendations. I feel like as a board and as a district, we've been very consistent this past year with how we navigate all of the guidance. And I guess simply said, as we look at that, again, health and safety for our staff and students is our priority. There's no question about that. But a very simplistic way to look at how we move forward with our planning. We require what's required and we recommend what's recommended. In terms of a learning format, we are very excited to be coming back 5 days a week in a typical learning format. Our public speakers this evening weren't wrong when they noted that it was challenging for students to not be here in school every day last year. We heard that from families. We heard that from students. We heard that from staff. And now that we can safely have all of our students back in school, we're very excited to have that happening for our students. However, we do have some families that feel like they would like a virtual option. As a district, we have engaged with Southwest Metro, and in cooperation with several other districts, we're able to provide that opportunity for our students in the Jordan community. One unique thing about this opportunity would be that they still remain Jordan students. We typically aren't able to do that when we join the consortium for different courses and classes. So they stay Jordan students. The platform that they interact with online has Jordan logos. It looks like Jordan communications, and all of that is trademarked for that. So they really feel like they're part of that community. And really that's important to us. Students might be interacting online with classes, but there are kids, and we want to make sure that we maintain those relationships. Face coverings and masks are not required. They haven't been required since I think June 4th, June 3rd, when the Safe Learning Plan ended and the executive orders allowed for that to happen. They are strongly recommended by the Department of Health, and families can make those decisions for their students, staff can make those decisions for themselves. The one requirement that we do have comes from the U.S. Department of Transportation. This is something that's not within Jordan Public Schools' control. It's not within the state of Minnesota's control. Currently, the federal regulations say that students, staff, the public, anybody on a public transportation of any sort, and they consider busing, public transportation, must be masked while they are on those buses. That right now is in effect through September 13th, 2021, and we've communicated with our families that that's the only date we know at this time. If we learn something new, we would of course communicate that out, but right now it's set to expire on that date. Health and safety protocols. Last year as a board, the decision was made to support our schools by adding enhanced air handling solutions. Bipolar ionization systems were very popular across the state of Minnesota and across the country. And so we worked with agencies to make sure those were in place to have enhanced air cleaning solutions. Our district, as I mentioned, also will continue to have those extra hand sanitizing stations. Those are important. We'll have some additional ones made so that we have extra ones outside and then in our commons as well. As I mentioned earlier, we will have disinfecting happening daily as well as the typical cleaning protocols, and again, those are two different things. Social distancing is a question we get a lot. It's not required. But of course, if we can, have 3 feet between a desk, we'll definitely do that, but we can't do that in all of our classrooms. They're just not big enough, and our priority is to have our students back in school and having as typical of a learning process as we can. Again, health and safety protocols, lots of questions about quarantine. Our quarantining procedures changed back, I think, June 4th as well, and shifted to the new requirements and recommendations. And I guess the simplest way to look at that is if you're positive for COVID-19 or you have symptoms, you shouldn't be in school, obviously, until you either test negative. And then also the quarantining will no longer be, let's say Dominic is in a first grade classroom, he tests positive, that whole class wouldn't quarantine, but the families would get a signs and symptoms letter because we sure want them to know and be able to watch for symptoms parallel to when kids have strep throat or, other things happening in the classrooms. They'll receive those signs and symptoms letters. Vaccinations and testing, we get a lot of questions about this as well. Are we going to be requiring vaccinations? We don't require them. At this point, I don't know of any school districts requiring them in the K-12 public school realm. Our district doesn't, and of course, we will help support families that want to be vaccinated, provide all the information that they need, and support that. And our staff as well. We provide opportunities if they want a vaccination to help them find that vaccination, but they're not required. Well, one thing I want to also note on that in terms of testing, last year we were able to provide frequent testing for our staff who wanted it. We learned last week that we'll get some communication on how we might be able to do that again. So we don't have the information yet on that, but it's likely staff could be able to be tested right here at Jordan. I think the other odds and ends that are important, moving into a school year, I know class size is always a big worry and big conversation, and I know a couple of years ago our class size ranges shifted here in Jordan, but we monitor those. I know the principals and I talk more than weekly and take a look at where we're at. This week we added a couple of positions. We added a third grade position. As we weren't quite at that high-end number, we knew that the needs that we had within that group of students made sense for us to add a third grade position. We also added a kindergarten position this week. So we continue to monitor that. Summer projects, I have to say I cannot believe how far our staff has come with getting our buildings ready for kids. I was in the elementary on Thursday, couldn't believe it. It has just come leaps and bounds. They're working so hard. So very proud of them and excited for that. I know later on Tim will be talking about some summer projects too that he's working through. Nutrition services, again, this is a big darn deal for families as well. The USDA is funding again free meals throughout the school year through June 30th, 2022. So that's really nice for families. The things that will cost money though is if you get an a la carte or an extra item or extra milk and all of that. Another big shift for us, we're back to having our kids where they need to eat lunch in the lunchrooms with their peers. So that'll be really nice this year as well. We anticipate volunteers coming back into the schools and the buildings. We'll be managing how that looks, as well as visitors on a limited basis as we get going. But we're really excited to have that. We do have really excellent volunteers, and so the more we can interact and see with them, our kids just appreciate it, so does our staff. Field trips and travel for school programs, that will be restored. Very excited for that for our kids, as well as traditional recess. So I just want to give a shout out. Our principals are working so hard, and people have been in and getting ready for the year already, and we just cannot wait to have our kids back. Which brings me to the theme. So as we think about next school year, our theme is really Together We Leap. And we think about all the achievements. Our kids have persevered. Our staff has persevered and just done an amazing job. This is our third year of unique things when you really think about it. And I would never say that we would disregard the learning gaps and all of those struggles that they've had. But it's really important that we also focus on all the amazing things that they've done and the unique ways that they have just grown so much and learned so much. So the LEAP really represents those achievements. It connects to bridging gaps, making connections between really the things that we need with these relationships with kids. It's been brought up earlier tonight, mental health is critical for our kids. And we are really excited to have them back with us every day and working to support our kids. So it's our focus on moving forward. Communications, I put this in here just as an FYI for the board, but more for any of the public that might be watching tonight. I believe we'll have another social media reminder going out just to look for information. Those back to school letters are coming out in communications on the upcoming school year. We have so many great events that are going to be happening in August, and we really want our families to come and join us. We did send a district communication late in July just to let families know what our protocols were going to be. We felt like it was more important to get that out sooner than later on how we're moving forward with requirements and recommendations and all of those components. And then again, building communications are on their way. I also want to make sure everybody knows that we have a website and there's information on there. We're still updating every day. And so we'll be getting some of the old stuff off and the new stuff on, and we're finalizing some things. So, but that is where during the school year families can find the most up-to-date information. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer those.
I'm sorry. On page, can you flip back to page 2? We talked about the ongoing input and feedback through public comment.
Yeah.
In the faculty, was it the entire faculties, like paras, teachers?
We sent it to all employees of Jordan.
Okay, and what was the percentage of response?
Well, we didn't break it out by that. We wanted to get everybody's perspective. So we don't have a staff percentage response and a public. We wanted everybody's together.
So of those that you sent out, what is the percentage of response for everybody? Do we have a 10% participation in the survey? Do we have a 20% participation in the survey?
That's a really good question. I can say this. Oftentimes when we send out surveys, we might get 100 responses. It was overwhelming to get 285. You know,
so
we
that
have
285 includes both the community and our staff.
Correct. So it's actually really good. It doesn't sound good, but for what we normally get, it's actually really good.
Well, I kind of feel like we should have had more participants, like with this year, that we would have had a lot more community engagement with that survey, specifically for what was the content on it.
I can't speak to that,
No, I know.
why somebody would or wouldn't, but I do feel like our families are engaged. I mean, I feel like they're coming and sharing the information that they want us to know, and I feel like they were really explicit in the survey about what they felt was important. And I also feel like when you send those things out, if you really have something to say, you say it. And if you really are like, you don't. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's reality.
Okay, and then where was it? We talked about free meals too.
Yep.
So there's that form that most people usually typically fill out for
Yes.
the free and reduced.
Mhm.
We don't have to fill that out.
Yes, we do.
We do. We
And
still,
that will be a separate communication. We have a whole communication plan on that because that actually is separate from, I mean, yes, it can help you get free meals, but that actually funds so many other things. So Elise has a whole communication ready to go on that.
good. That's kind of what I was hoping. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Great questions.
All right. Thank you for the update.
You bet.
Item 8.2, review and act on 21-22 JES Parent-Student Handbook.
Good evening, school board, community members. I'm Melissa Barnett, the elementary principal. And I have here, we are first going to review the changes and additions that were made to the parent-student handbook for the upcoming school year. Those changes and additions were reflected here in this document. At this point in time, does anyone have any questions regarding these revisions?
Lauren does.
Pardon me?
Lauren does. I'm looking for it because I had to go to the handbook, and actually it's about the PBIS.
Mhm.
There's the terminology of restorative justice in the language there.
Mhm.
And it talks about four things, and I'm hoping you can provide me with an example of what each one of those is. So I'm trying to get there, sorry. Give me a minute, you were too quick. Okay, so the first one is a classroom discipline reflection sheet. So like, is that something the classroom is doing collectively together, or is it just something a student is doing with the teacher? I think I need a little bit more of a description.
No, I'm glad you asked. A reflection sheet is based on individual student needs.
Okay. Is it something that's just between teacher and student, teacher-parent, teacher?
It can be all of the above depending on the situation.
Okay. And then can you also give me an example of an effective statement?
So.
Like, how is that used?
What that means is the behavior that happens, how has it impacted or affected everybody involved? So it might be, how did it impact the teacher? How did it impact the other students in the classroom? How did it impact you personally as the student showing that behavior? So it's talking through and reflecting through everybody it's impacted or affected.
And this is stuff that's done with the student and the teacher or the student and the parent. It's not a classroom exercise.
No, it's done actually in a separate location to protect that person's dignity.
Okay. Circles, what are circles? Am I reading that wrong? It's the third one on the list. I think it's on page 32, towards the bottom.
Oh, thank you. What that is, it's just being able, it's how we group the people involved in the actual incident, and we really focus on it being in a circle so that we can all see each other and be able to, you know, when you're making those impact statements or how people are affected, to be able to teach kids on how to look in the eye, how to talk and listen to the speaker. So it's just a way of how we format it so that everybody's voices are heard.
Okay. And then what's an example of a restorative question?
So this is the behavior that happened. Help us to talk through how things will change when you go back into the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions or comments? All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 JES Parent Student Handbook.
So move.
A motion by Sandy. Second by Connie. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Item 8.3, review and act on the 21-22 JES Staff Handbook.
Once again, there is a document here in Board Book that reflects the changes, the additions to the staff handbook. At this time, I'll entertain any questions that you might have about those.
I'm looking at eyes, I'm seeing who's furiously studying their screen. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 JES Staff Handbook.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Molly, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Sarah. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank
work.
you, Melissa. Okay, item 8.4, review and act on the 21-22 JMS Parent Student Handbook. Mr. Bakeberg?
Hello, my name is Ben Bakeberg. I have the privilege to serve as the middle school principal. Just a couple updates as Hope is pulling that up. The middle school mailing, this is more for the public, will be going out tomorrow, and that educational benefits flyer is in there. It's really important that we get that taken care of. Jumpstart, if you have a incoming fifth grader, is next week, and open house, which will be a great night. It's shared between the middle school and the high school that night. There will be food trucks, so we'd love to see all of you there. So the updates for the middle school handbook are as reported. Some updates throughout. One of the highlights is we're going to tweak how we do backpacks. In the past, we've not allowed students to carry their backpacks. We are going to moving forward. That was one of the pieces from COVID that we found that was successful to help eliminate congestion at the lockers. So we're going to continue to do that, but we're going to evaluate in October and just see how that is going. So we'll be doing that. And then we're adding there's a posting that went out for a WIN room. So we have an adult that is going to work and process with kids that are struggling. It was noted tonight just about the mental health of students. So that's a support that we have in place to help students process as we're coming back in. We had a phenomenal training, a flex day training that we've done 2 of the 3 of them with our staff. And the speaker used an analogy of a Coke can, and one of them was dropped on the ground and was shaken up, and another one was just normal. And you can't tell which of those is shaken just by looking at the Coke can. So our kids coming back, some of them will adjust and they'll adjust well, and some of them are going to be shaken. So this win room is going to help support students when they're struggling in the classroom, so that their behaviors don't impact the learning of the kids that are in class. So we'll process with those kids, get them back to class as quickly as possible so that the teachers and the other kids can continue learning. So those are the 2 big adjustments. I'll leave it for questions for the board.
Questions?
Lauren,
Mr.
I thought
Baker?
for sure you'd have one.
I actually thought I would too, but Ben, you did the recap, perfectly for me.
I knew you were going to ask that, so I thought I'd just throw that out there.
All right, if Lauren doesn't have any questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Ben's handbook.
Motion by Lauren,
I'll second.
a second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.5, review and act on 21-22 JMS Staff Handbook.
Very similar updates to our staff handbook. We have some staffing changes. It was in the consent agenda. Kaylee Doherty was a fantastic language arts teacher for years for us. She has other opportunities, so we're very happy. That's going to lead to some shifting that we're not ready to announce yet. But so the journalist, there will be some changes from what was reported in the journalist, but we'll have fantastic staff members for our students, but that will continue to be an update process as we're hiring into the summer. And then some special ed updates just to make sure that we were clear with our processes and expectations for staff. But with that, I'll leave it as reported.
Any questions?
Is there any changes to because I know we had talked at an earlier meeting about like the homework assignments, like they could turn it in as late as they wanted to for full credit. Is that all still the same?
So that's our flex days, one of our trainings. So there will be some very clear guidelines with clear deadlines for students that they just can't turn things in endlessly.
Right.
Part of that was because of the pandemic
Right.
and that piece, but moving into next year, all of you, your kids have to get their stuff done on time. So thank you. We expect the same clapping when we call you, and your kids have to do that. So.
And I know Jeff's not up here, but that would be the same expectation,
Yep. Same.
I would assume, for the high school
So,
as
yep,
well,
we
right?
have we're working with staff and departments. Jeff's working from a department standpoint. We're working as a grade level standpoint from a middle school so that there's a progression from 5th grade to 8th grade to help prepare our kids to move into the high school. 5th grade is the first time that students are getting grades reported on Infinite Campus, so there's an adjustment there. But great question, Molly, and yes, that will be all communicated. Our big focus for our flex days, this was with, I'll steal Jeff's thunder. Melissa and Jeff are over there timing me right now, so. But we talked about parent communication and just the importance of being proactive in what's being taught and then how we're communicating with families, so being very intentional in that. So staff are developing communication plans. We talked about grading, that was a huge piece of it. Talked about course syllabus, and then just kind of nuts and bolts pieces getting back to the school year to help staff be set up and ready to roll. So that grading component is something that, it's quite frankly, it's going to be an adjustment for kids, but it's a necessary adjustment as we move out of the pandemic. So thank you. Any other questions?
Just make a comment. There was a staff note in there about IEPs. I serve on the special ed board, and I know even personally how much it means to a student when a teacher or a principal shows up at an IEP meeting, especially if teachers can't be there, write success notes
Yep.
or encouraging notes. And I think by putting it in the staff handbook that they should try to attend an IEP meeting is a great way to support the kids that need that support. So thank you for putting that in there.
Yep, and actually the staff member that brought it up even took it to the extent of, we need to be cautious. We're all busy with life, but we need to be cautious of when we come in as a staff member, not to have our jacket in our book bag, because that just sends a pretty powerful message. And I think it's important to note that that's the level of detail that our staff is going to and how much they care about our kids.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 JMS staff handbook.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Molly. Second by Connie. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to 8.6, review and act on the 21-22 JHS Parent-Student Handbook.
Thank
Jeff?
you, board and community. As reported, I did highlight a couple of different things. One that's really, that we added this year, and it kind of ties in with some of the things we've talked about, and that's that we just really ask our parents to not call their student while they're in class, because sometimes parents will call students with some kind of emergency, and we don't then have support for that child, and they go running out of the room and go into the bathroom or somewhere like that. If the parent can call the office and we can work with the child and have support for them, that would be really helpful. That's something that we added to our handbook, just as a reminder. And then the other one that I have highlighted here is just about academic honesty. We've seen through the pandemic that students working on their own, and then it's easy to work with my buddy, and then suddenly some things become cooperative when they shouldn't be cooperative, and all those different things. So we just added some levels of support, and really also addressing the technology piece, students taking pictures of tests, things like that that just can't be done. So those are a couple of different things that we really learned from this past 18 months of working with our students and trying to support them. And so I guess I would just open it up to questions. I think Ben has addressed the one question. I was going to talk about that in my principal's report, but I will talk about it there too. So any questions on the handbook?
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2021-22 JHS Parent-Student Handbook.
So moved.
A motion by Sandy,
Second.
seconded by Sarah. All right, further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8.7, review and act on the 21-22 JHS Staff Handbook.
That one I'll just go right to, as reported. There's really housekeeping types of issues in there.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 JHS Staff Handbook.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Lauren,
Second.
second by Molly. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Got more? All right, item 8.8, review and act on the 21-22 Activities Handbook.
So you're stuck with me on this one. Our activities director is out of state right now. And so he pulled together just the handbook changes for us. Again, lots of housekeeping components. That's how I'd characterize it.
So I do have a question on grades with sports and activities. So I thought it used to be you had to have a C, but now it's an F. So
I don't know the
if
answer
you're above
to
an
that.
F, okay.
Mr. Visner, are you still out there?
Yeah, he is.
Nice try, Mr. Visner.
'Cause I was reading it looks like they're checking grades on Mondays, and if
That
you're at
sounds
an
accurate.
F, you can't participate that week, or if you get that sheet signed off, that showing you're making progress, you can.
I can't speak to it fully. Here's what I'm going to get as close as I can, Molly, but I'm don't hold me exactly to it because I don't deal with it all the time. From what I understand is grades are pulled, Mr. Perkle meets with the students, says here's where your grades are, and that means they're below 60%, they're at an F. He would meet with them, say here's what you need to do. You need to show progress by Thursday. Usually he gives them a window. And then by Thursday, if they've shown progress and they are, I won't even say passing because I don't know if it's passing or progress. I'm not positive on that piece. If they meet that deadline and turn that form in by 3 p.m., then they'd be eligible for either that Thursday's contest Friday or the weekend or whatever. And then if they are completely passing everything, then they're off the list and there's no more progress monitoring. If they continue on the list, then they would continue on with the progress monitoring.
Okay.
That's as close as I can get to it because I don't work with it daily.
And I don't know, was it a C or a C average before though, right? Like a C, and that's what
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was this changed this year, or is it?
It's not up there on one of the updates. That's what I thought it was a C. Maybe I just held my kid to a higher standard. I don't know.
I don't think it was a C. I
Okay.
don't think it was that.
But so if they're an F on Monday, they cannot participate for sure until Thursday.
I think
or-
they get that time to make that up, and then
Okay.
Thursday would be that drop dead time. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And
it's not a C average, it's they have to be passing.
Okay.
Or they have to be making progress, because, and the reason for that, it's important, progress for me is gonna be different for progress for Jeff.
Can you go to the
So-
mic, because I'm not sure if people who
So-
are, sorry.
So it's not a set, you're passing your classes, because all the kids that come to us are at a very different ability level. So as long as they're making an effort and making progress, then they can participate in activities. I have family members who, the only reason that one of them graduated from high school is because of sports. And if he didn't have sports, he wouldn't have graduated. And he made progress. He wasn't on an IEP, wasn't special ed, just school was hard. So as long as he made progress, he was still able to participate under this rule.
Now,
So-
is that just for athletics, or is that for like the arts too?
Yep.
Okay.
That would be all activities. And the other piece that Ben reminded me of is that progress monitoring is that student going around to all of their teachers and getting that signed by that teacher, by that faculty member.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, great
And correct
question.
me if I'm wrong, but I believe that MSA, that's MSHSL language, that they have to be making adequate progress, is that?
Towards graduation, yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly.
Progress towards graduation, yep.
So any school district can define that differently,
Right.
correct?
Yep.
So-
At some places, it could be that they're a freshman and they only earn 1 credit first semester freshman year, and now they're not on pace to graduate. And other people would deem that as well. If they do summer school, do this, they still could graduate in the 4-year cohort with their students, with their other peers.
Thanks.
Any other athletics questions that Ben and I can tag team on?
Joe owes you guys.
He
Okay,
does.
I would entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 activities handbook.
Can I ask, I'm sorry. I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Lauren,
Second.
second by Sandy. Further discussion, Lauren?
Yeah. Sorry. Are all of our handouts that we're basically approving today in Spanish as well? Are they in both languages? Because I think we have we have a high Spanish, don't we?
I think almost everything that goes home we translate in Spanish. I know that our communications director does a lot of work with that anytime we send things home. I can't speak to if this document is fully translated in Spanish at this time.
Okay. Can you just let me know, though?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 8.9, review and act on the 21-22 school meal pricing.
Good evening. So, as we've all heard tonight, even though meals are free, I just wanted to give an update on what our prices will be. And so, like, if your student, even though the meals are free, if they want an extra entree, that would be $2, and that would go on to their Infinite Campus. We are going to raise the prices of the elementary snack fee to $60 this year because of the ongoing rise in food costs, but milk will remain at $50, and that's for grades. The snack price is for grades K through 4, and the milk is for grades 1 through 4, and because the district gets reimbursed for the milk. Other prices, so if this was a normal year, our student lunch cost would be K through 4 would be $2.65 a lunch, 5 through 12 would be $2.75 a lunch. A staff lunch is $3.85. Student breakfast would be $1.80, staff breakfast $2. We also provide lunch for MervSec and St. John's, and those are $3.05, and the staff at those schools is $3.85. And an extra milk is 50 cents. And we are going to be looking at these prices more closely next year, once we possibly will be charging student prices and for lunches next year. And again, families are also asked to fill out the education or the application for education benefits. This is for free and reduced application, but it also determines scholarship status for athletics, as well as helping us generate compensatory revenue. So, and we're going to make this kind of like an action item, and it's my recommendation that the board approve these prices for the 21-22 school year.
Can I ask why the price difference between MervSec, St. John's, and the elementary school here?
This was approved a couple years ago because we deliver their meals, and it's also our administrative time. We use those in, we keep track of those students in Infinite Campus, and it's extra work for us.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to point out that I didn't realize that it wasn't $60 for the snack cart, because when my youngest was in kindergarten, who is now a senior, it was $50. So a $10 raise, I mean, it hasn't been raised in at least 12 or 13 years.
No.
So, yeah, I think it's time to keep up
Yes.
with the cost of,
Yes.
of everything.
Yep, it definitely is.
I know it's not ideal timing, obviously, but
Yeah, but it is a great thing for our kids to be able to participate in that.
Connie, do you have a question?
Chairman, I was wondering, when we do these prices, I know the last 2 years we've provided, or last year and this year, we will provide free lunches. Is that free to the staff also?
No. Nope, it's just for our students.
Thank you.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the 21-22 school meal pricing.
So moved.
Motion by Connie,
second.
seconded by Sandy. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item 8.10, discussion on summer facility updates.
Hi, good evening. As Renee said, cleaning of the buildings and summer projects are going along really good, probably ahead of schedule, so we'll be ready for the start of school. Just two quick updates that I believe you guys have been filled in on. The chiller at the high school lost a compressor 3-4 weeks ago during that real hot part. Because of the age, 19 years old, we have moved that ahead on our LTFM project. We're working with Kraus Anderson to get bids. What we did do is bring in a portable chiller that's sitting out back of the high school, hooked it in with the half that's still running so we can cool the building. We'll be in good shape. Once cooling season's over, we'll shut everything down and hopefully get the new one put in before next spring when we need it. And then something else that came up here a couple weeks ago is some cooling pipes on our elementary are up on some stands a couple feet on, and they just moved and tipped over. No damage was really done other than we have to drain the system and put all that back up. Everything's running the way it's supposed to be. The building's cool. So we are working with vendors to do that after the cooling season again. We'll shut it down, get everything put back, and be ready for the start next spring. And that can be done while kids are in school. So we have turned both of them into insurance claims to see if they qualify for an insurance. So does anybody have any questions?
If they don't qualify for insurance, is it coming from the long-term facilities maintenance budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 8.11, review and act on resolution establishing combined polling places. And I believe before we act on this, I need to read the resolution. Okay, Resolution establishing combined polling places for multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District Number 717, State of Minnesota as follows. 1. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11, the precincts and polling places for the school district elections are those precincts or parts of precincts located within the boundaries of the school district which have been established by the cities or towns located in the whole or part within the school district. The board hereby confirms these precincts and polling places so established by those municipalities. 2. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.11, the board may establish a combined polling place for several precincts for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election. Each combined polling place must be a polling place that has been designated by a county or municipality. The following combined polling places are established to serve the precincts specified for all school district special and general elections not held on the same day as a statewide election. Combined polling place is the Community Education and Recreation Center at 500 Sunset Drive, Jordan, Minnesota, 55352. This combined polling place serves all territory and independent District 717, located in Belle Plaine Township, Cedar Lake Township, Helena Township, Louisville Township, St. Lawrence Township, Sand Creek Township, Spring Lake Township, the City of Jordan Precinct 1, the City of Jordan Precinct 2 of Scott County, Minnesota. Number 3, pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 205A.9, the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the same day as a statewide election between the hours of 7 o'clock a.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. 4, the clerk is directed to file a certified copy of this resolution with the county auditors of each of the counties in which the school district is located, in whole or in part, within 30 days after its adoption. 5, as required by Minnesota Statute Section 204B.16 Subdivision 1A, the clerk is hereby authorized and directed to give written notice of new polling place locations to each affected household with at least one registered voter in the school district whose school district polling place location has been changed. The notice must be a non-forwardable notice mailed at least 25 days before the date of the first election to which it will apply. A notice that is returned as undeliverable must be forwarded immediately by the appropriate county auditor who shall change the registration status to challenge in the statewide registration system. So, I don't know if I had to read all of it, but I did, so we're legal. So I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution establishing combined polling places as read.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Lauren,
Second.
second from Molly. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right, resolution passes. Moving on to board and administrative reports. I'm not going to go through every administrative report. Are there specific questions that anybody has with any of the reports? I realize there's a number of them. Give me a minute.
I just became aware today, because of where I work, of the crisis in the food service industry with the shortage of being able to get things. And if they can order it, there's no trucks to deliver it because they can't get enough drivers. Is that causing us concern? I'm sure without a food service director right now, that's worrisome with what our prices will be. We did just set the prices, but the government's paying for it, but we don't, that's not giving us an open checkbook to be able to provide quality, nutritious food that kids will really eat. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Yep, no, that is something that Amy and I just had this conversation last week with one of our head cooks. And we are aware of that. We have not yet felt that necessarily. I will say that for us, it does present a little bit of a problem in the manner that we can't just order bulk supplies because we don't have a lot of cold space storage for things. So I know there have been times where they've tried to order ahead. We can't operate that way because we wouldn't have the storage for that. But it is something we're aware of. We have not yet felt the impact of that.
Anything else?
Since you
Lauren?
brought up food service, I'm gonna ask this question. Sorry. The reimbursement that we're getting because we're providing free meals, does it cover the cost or does it not?
Does it cover all of our costs? No.
Related to serving lunches? So it doesn't. So
No.
when we're serving food
Yeah.
for free, we're technically not getting all of the reimbursement and it's hitting our general
Yeah,
fund.
I mean, it never covers all of
Mhm.
our costs. So, Amy, I don't know if you have other things you would want to add to that, but no, the reimbursements are helpful, absolutely helpful, but with all of the costs we have with staffing and ordering, and depending on what we order, do we order generic, do we order name brand, all of those things are variables that play within that. So unfortunately, our food service the last couple of years has run a negative balance. I know last December when our auditors were here, they shared that the year before, I think we were like $25,000 negative, and we as a group brought forward to you as a board the requirement from the state that you can't run a negative balance. You had to fund that out of the general fund. That happened last year. We will find out in December where our numbers came out for this last school year. I think we'll look better than we did, but we likely will be negative again. Earlier this year, I know when we were doing budgets and updates, we had shared with the board at one point we were like $115,000 negative in our food service. That gap has closed significantly with students coming back to school every day this spring. And then also some of the reimbursable lunches this summer, but we still will run negative. It's very likely for this coming year.
Do you know what the percentage is that they reimburse?
I don't off the top of my head, but we can find that out for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have one follow-up.
Oh, yes.
Come on up, Amy.
I'm sorry, I probably should have asked that when we were having that. It just
That's
didn't
okay.
pop into my brain.
So, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but, so like for breakfast, the district is reimbursed 2.24 for the food and then 0.2225 for the administration costs. And for lunches, we were reimbursed $3.91 for the food and 0.4075 for the administration cost. But like as Superintendent Evenson did say, we did serve a lot of meals in March, April, May. And then again, with the summer meals, it is helping in June.
Okay.
But we just never have been able to fully fund based on those reimbursements, just because there's so many variables with how many hours our staff work, how many staff it takes to do the things we need them to do, what the cost is for the food. So to answer your question in a really simplistic way, it never fully covers.
I have a follow-up question to
Yeah.
that, though. When we were charging parents for that, did that actually fully cover the cost either? I mean, I guess
I would defer to Amy. I didn't work here at that.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I believe so, because if you add into that, like when COVID hit and for most of last year, we weren't able to sell hardly any a la carte items either, and that made a big difference. So when the students when they didn't have to pay for their meals and we weren't being able to do the a la carte, that took a big chunk of revenue out, even just from when COVID started in the end of March through the end of that school year. We lost a lot of revenue just because of that. And you know, the kids weren't taking all the meals all the time when they were on distance learning as well. But we were still paying the staff, and if they didn't come and get the meals, well, then that was wasted.
But now we are going to be having a la carte, so
Yes.
I guess I would anticipate then that it would
Yep.
go up a little bit at least.
Yep,
so that-
I think with our discussions, I think they're anticipating having full a la carte bars as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
My understanding is when we did the remodel of the middle school, though, our food service account was in very good, and that helped us to be able to upgrade a lot of
Yes.
the kitchen's equipment and whatever, as
Yep.
a matter, even for our building and other buildings, and knowing that that piece of money is only there and we can't allocate that in different spots.
Mhm.
So it's just recently that we are in bad standards. We have been fiscally responsible,
Yes.
and we have been good money managers in the nutrition program. Very good.
Yes,
Yeah,
they've just been.
100% I just want to follow up on that. There was a substantial amount of money from that fund that did help and pay for that remodel, and that makes tons of sense to do that. That's the right move. It's not about fiscal mismanagement, but truthfully, we didn't have participation and engagement a lot at the level we would normally expect over the last 2 years.
Mhm.
And so that was a challenge as a district. And as Amy mentioned, again, there's lots of variables, but the a la carte piece didn't help at all. So, and I would say too, even just the types of food we were able to share and prepare during COVID, the prepackaged pieces, there wasn't as much engagement for a variety of reasons around that. Totally get that. So we're really looking forward to having a little different look and model this upcoming school year, if that helps.
All right, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to committee reports. I believe the Health and Safety Committee met.
We did. Do you want me to report on that?
I wasn't there, so yeah,
Absolutely.
please.
Yeah, we had a really actually robust meeting. We discussed the health and safety components, went through all of the things that were communicated this evening, had some discussions about the water fountains. If you guys remember, we left the water bottle fillers, but the bubblers were removed, and that was a major recommendation a year ago. You know, we have learned since then we didn't need to do that any longer, and so we're restoring that. That'll be really nice because not all of our students have access to water bottles, and we were giving out cups all the time, of course, because we wanted kids to not be thirsty. But that's a big thing, so we're happy to have the bubblers restored moving forward. And again, we'll have enhanced cleaning. So if anybody's worried about that, like our custodians do a great job with that, so we'll make sure that's in place. Also, there was a discussion they wanted more hand sanitizer stations available. So Tim and his team are going to be building some new ones that will be ready for us into the school year. We talked about the plexiglass, to leave the plexiglass or not leave the plexiglass. We're leaving the plexiglass at this time. Part of the conversation was, you know, we didn't want to take it away from people if they wanted it. We do have some feedback that folks, you know, feel like it should stay at this time with unknowns with the Delta variant and things like that. Makes sense. And, you know, we have a number of folks that use that in the very close settings. So plexiglass, we allowed that to stay. I'm trying to think about other conversations that we had, but it was a very helpful conversation because they were tough to figure out how we wanted to move forward.
Booster Club?
Met. They just ran through some of the fundraising committee stuff. So the school store is going to team up with concession for volunteers. So looking at a model like that. Membership and corporate partnerships are underway. They're working on so communications and marketing, they're working on the fall media guides, the senior banners for the fall sports, and the corporate banners. They were looking for volunteers. I think they got some for the PAC meeting to represent there. They're looking for
Open houses.
houses as well. So if anyone's interested in signing up and supporting that. And also homecoming is October 1st. Looking for volunteers for that. And then their Tackle Cancer is October 7th.
All right.
Could I add one thing on that?
Sure.
I had a really nice meeting with the boosters probably 2 weeks ago now. And one of the major things they talked about was just engagement from our families and as many volunteers as possible. And so we would encourage our families to do whatever you can to support a lot of the events. They're really easy, simple things that we can do, all of us, to support those events, but ultimately our kids benefit from it. So I just wanted to put the plug in there for our families that could support that booster need.
I was just going to add that as well, so good.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect. Lauren and I always try to do plugs for boosters. So.
They currently have an opportunity right now that's out there, and so if anybody's looking for some way to volunteer, definitely sign up for the PAC meeting or open house at either the high school or the middle school.
Yep.
Come join me. I'm at the middle school doing it.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have anything to say about MSBA summer seminar? I have not been able to attend.
I did not attend. Was I the only one? You must have been.
Okay.
You have the floor.
Well, it was a shortened version this year, obviously, because it was virtual. But one thing that I really liked that they did, because I don't know if any of you, I think several of you attended the leadership conference. They did something at the end which was really nice and had us divide into like very small groups. And so we could get to know other board members from other communities, and I think that really helped people stay engaged. Some of the topics that were included was on the Minnesota Safe Learning Survey report, and that was actually very useful because I learned that one of the things is that Minnesota was the only state that they knew of that actually gathered a survey regarding, I think it was the first in February of 2021, and then covering the first half of the school year, and then they also did one in May of 2021. And so that was very helpful to know and to have those findings. There was a workshop on mental health, on district equity and inclusion framework from Forest Lakes area schools. There was an MDE update, and then there was a good amount of discussion about the Minnesota constitutional amendment that's being proposed, but I don't know exactly when it's going to be, if it's going to be put on the ballot. But it was very helpful to hear all of the perspectives on that. I don't feel like I knew at all where anybody came down on that, but it was just very helpful information. So I don't know, Renee, I know you attended.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was pulled in and out of it with different things that were happening, but I also attended this session with other districts, and very helpful just to kind of talk through what everyone's fall plans were and how things were progressing and moving forward. We're very much in alignment with area districts in terms of our planning for fall.
All right, board member reports. I'll start with Molly and work back this way. Huh. Oh, no, we gotta go the other way? Okay, all right. All right, well, I just want to thank the administration for your work on preparation for back to school. I know that there's a lot that's going into this, a lot to consider, and appreciate you guys putting the kids first and trying to design a system that'll work for everybody, so thank you. Sure.
I would echo what Ryan said. I really appreciate all of the hard work that everybody has put in to help make this hopefully a really great school year, fingers crossed. And I just want to point out that I appreciate that they are also wanting to make sure that all students are included, regardless of your beliefs. I feel like it's important that we hear all students and that we support all students, regardless of their orientation or whatever, but it is extremely important that we support all students.
I just wanted to say we were missed, the Jordan Education Foundation report was missed tonight, so I'd like to do that report at this time. We had a thank you card from Sherry Stemick at Jordan Elementary. The Jordan Education Foundation purchased whiteboards for them. It was Mike's last meeting as president. He resigned, so he'll no longer be the president. Emails were sent out to all grant recipients. They're going to do a video. So each of the grant recipients that received a grant this year was contacted. It will be used as marketing for Jordan Education Foundation. Again, the grad-grams were a success for their first year, and we saw them at many graduation parties, and it was really exciting to see them. The commercial club presentation was done, and a commercial club person even reached out and had more questions, so obviously it was a successful presentation. We've been contacted to have a booth at the Hyman Fest Car Cruise up at the Mini-Met, and they'll be selling something. And they're contacting the Jordan Education Foundation scholarship recipients and invited them to ride in the parade this year for Hyman Fest. They're going to do a staff kickoff, or tell the staff at the new teacher, or the staff workshop, more about Jordan Education Foundation, how the staff can get involved, not only being a recipient of the grant, but also possibly being willing to make a monthly monetary, somehow we can make the money that we have grow bigger to be able to reach more opportunities for students in the Jordan district and make it give like give and keep that legacy carrying on. Again, I said Mike resigned. We did elections. Jenny Kay is president. Karen Furley will stay as Treasurer Tina will be vice president. We have open spot for a secretary, community members. If you'd like to get involved in the Jordan Education Foundation, again, it's legacy money that Jim Pauley donated to the district in honor that all students be treated equally and all students get opportunities. The money is given out in scholarships and it's given out as teacher things. Our next meeting is 8/17 at 6:30. And I'm looking forward to a fun, exciting new school year for our staff and our kids. And thank you for everyone, including Tim, that's worked really hard because the grounds are very exceptionally looking wonderful because of the drought. So thank you.
Lauren?
Last week, I went to the Family Resource Centers of Scott County. There are 3 locations, I believe, that have opened. One's at the Shakopee Library, one's at the Jordan Area Food Shelf, and one is at the YMCA River Valley. I met a very nice gal by the name of Crystal, I'm going to butcher her name, I know it, Boychenko, maybe? So, something along those lines. So she might reach out to you because I believe she wants to come and do a presentation to the school district because there are a lot of new services that they added to the resource center that include, you know, parenting skills and support and mentorship programs, early literacy and education programs, financial literacy classes, which I think is absolutely fantastic, economic assistance and navigation, housing consultation, legal information, and then domestic violence education and advocacy, and then culturally specific service navigation and language access for Latino and Somali communities. So I just think it was really great. I think Dahlia's was there serving for those who came out, and so it was really informative. So she may reach out to you.
Sarah?
Good. I think I'm good. I don't need to keep talking. I think I've done enough.
I just want to say I appreciate all the work going into preparing for the upcoming school year, though, and ensuring our staff and students are prepared to come back in person 5 days a week. I'm very excited for that. So thank you for all your work.
Molly?
Now I'm ready. Yeah, I thank all our community members for being here and coming and showing support for our teachers and for our students. And I'm thankful to our administration for getting our kids back 5 days a week with no masks on. And hopefully it stays that way. And then we just have a great year for everybody involved. So thank you all.
All right.
I think I get to do it. Yes, you do. Move to adjourn.
All right. Do we have to vote on this